The feeling that you get when you finally join medical school and you look around you and see all of your colleagues and you think, how am I here? I'm not good enough and I have no idea how I managed to pass all of these entrance exams to get to where I am today. Or maybe you start a brand new job that you've been looking forward to, and on your first day you get that feeling inside of you that you're not good enough and that you don't deserve to be here. That's imposter syndrome, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about today. And I'll be giving you guys all of my tips about how I deal with imposter syndrome throughout my time at medical school and also in my day-to-day job as a doctor. What is going on, guys? My name is Kenji and welcome back to the channel. Hopefully it's not the first time you're watching one of my videos, but just in case it is, I'm a doctor working in London. And as I mentioned, this video is not going to tell you guys how to get rid of imposter syndrome because I don't think that's actually possible. I think it's completely normal and it's part of your day-to-day experience as a human being. But what I will be doing is giving you guys all of the top tips that I use to deal with imposter syndrome on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first rule that I apply on a day-to-day basis to battle with imposter syndrome is to accept that it's completely normal. I know exactly how you guys feel. That feeling of imposter syndrome where you feel so alone and you think, why am I here? I'm not good enough. Everyone here is better than me. I know exactly what that feels like. The first way that I deal with it is to accept that it's completely normal. Feeling imposter syndrome is just like any sort of other feeling in the human body, like being happy or being sad or being lonely. It's just another type of feeling and emotion that we have as human beings, and that's actually part of your normal human being experience of being on this planet. And if you didn't feel this way, then you wouldn't be a normal student, you wouldn't be a normal doctor. The fact that you feel this feeling in your body is confirmation that you're a normal student, you're a normal doctor, you're a normal human being just going through their day-to-day life on this planet. And the point of accepting that it's normal is not to just give up and say, you know what, I'm gonna do nothing about this feeling. The reason that we accept that it's normal is honestly, from my experience, the moment that you realize and recognize this feeling in your body of imposter syndrome, you can kind of just, look at it in your shoulders and just shrug it off a little bit and get on with your day, knowing that it's a normal feeling that will come and will go. It's not a feeling that stays here forever. It's a normal fleeting feeling like being sad or being happy. You're not sad forever. If you have a moment of being sad, eventually you'll carry on with your day. You'll realize you actually are sad and that feeling will eventually go and the emotion will eventually leave your body. The second that I realize that I feel a bit of imposter syndrome in the morning, I don't shy away and I don't get nervous and I don't feel this weird feeling forever. I recognize it, I accept it, I shrug it off my shoulder and I realize this is a normal feeling to have and I'm a normal doctor who's going through the same feeling like everybody else, and eventually it will subside. And the second that I realize that, it makes it so much easier to deal with, to move on with the rest of my day and do what I have to do as a doctor. The second principle that I honestly live by on a day-to-day basis is that practice builds confidence. I realized that once you accept the feeling of imposter syndrome, you realize that, of course, I am supposed to feel this way. Maybe it's my first time being a doctor. Maybe it's my first time entering medical school. Maybe it's my first time doing this particular procedure. Of course, if it's my first time doing this procedure, of course, if it's my first time being a medical student, I will feel this way, and that's completely normal. And that practice builds confidence. And the more that I practice this procedure, the more that I, be a medical student, the less imposter syndrome I'll actually feel, and the more confidence I will therefore feel. So whenever I feel a bit of imposter syndrome the first time that I do something, I always remind myself that practice builds confidence, and that as long as I don't give up, as long as I'm willing to do the same thing over and over again, as long as I don't just put my hands up and say, you know what, I give up, then I eventually will overcome this feeling of imposter syndrome and be a confident person, or at least a confident person in this particular task. And the person that you see that is really confident in this given task is someone that has accepted that imposter syndrome is normal, and they've continued to work at that skill or at that task until the point where they realize that they actually are confident, and that feeling of imposter syndrome will eventually go away. And that's the second principle that I live by. Practice builds confidence. And once you do become competent in a given task, given that you don't give up, you will eventually not have this feeling of imposter syndrome anymore. If these first two principles haven't worked, then the third principle that I apply is to remind myself every single day or whenever I have this feeling of just how far I've come in life and just how deserving I am to be in this position that I'm in. For example, sometimes when I go into a new clinical environment, say I'm on a ward that I've never been on before, I'm doing a new ward round that I have no experience in, and I start to feel this feeling of imposter syndrome, like I shouldn't be here, like I'm not good enough, all the rest of the doctors know exactly what they're doing and I don't. I stop for a second and I say, Kenji, hold on a second. You spent 3 years in a bachelor's degree doing biomedical science to then move on to medical school for 5 years. So you've done medicine for 5 years and you've completely completely qualified and smashed all of your exams. Hold on a second. You deserve to be here just as much as everybody in this room over here. You're smart enough to be here. You've passed all of your exams. You've worked hard to be here just as much as everybody else. You've put a huge amount of time into this actual grind to be where you are. And remind yourself that you're not an imposter. You didn't get to where you are by mistake, by accident, by chance. You got to where you are right now because you have worked hard and you've put in that effort. The fact that you've overcome all of these obstacles proves that you deserve to be here, and therefore you won't label yourself as an imposter, and you'll then convince your mind that, look, I'm not an imposter. I am very deserving to be in this position that I'm in right now. And hopefully reminding yourself of that sometimes will really help you deal with this feeling of imposter syndrome. So no matter where you are in life, always keep a catalog in your head and constantly remind yourself that, listen, you deserve to be here and you can do whatever job or task that you feel an imposter in. That's the third principle. Let's move on to the fourth one. Now, what I actually noticed is that whenever I feel this feeling of imposter syndrome, a lot of the times it's associated with feeling like everybody is watching me and everybody is judging what I'm doing. And it's that feeling that some people refer to as a spotlight effect, like you literally have a spotlight above your head and everyone can see you and everyone's looking at you. And this spotlight effect is something that's actually described very much so in psychology. And what you need to realize is that this spotlight effect actually is not true. What you realize is that there are hundreds of people with spotlights over their own head, and everybody thinks they have this spotlight on top of their head. And what that means is that people are not concerned with what you're doing. People are not concerned with your own performance. Everybody has this spotlight effect over their own head, and their only concern is for themselves and what they're doing. And they're probably thinking that you're doing the same thing, that you're also equally judging them on their performance and everything like that. When I realized that in reality, no one really cares about how you perform. Of course, if you do something stupid or dangerous, then people will care about what you're doing. But generally speaking, on your day-to-day basis, when you're, performing, different tasks, no one actually cares. And as soon as I realized that, listen, no one actually cares and that everyone else is worrying about their own problems, that makes me feel much less like an imposter, because I realized that there's no one actually waiting to catch me out. There's no one actually looking for the imposter in the room, because everybody feels like an imposter. It's not just you. And the second I realized that, I feel much better in terms of my imposter syndrome. The fifth way that I deal with imposter syndrome is from time to time to ask my friends and my loved ones for a bit of a reminder about who I am as a person and how far I've come. Now, of course, you don't want to completely rely on your friends and your family to give you that positive reassurance all the time. Of course, you want to be an internally motivated person, and you also want to have your own inner feeling of self-worth. But every now and again, it is really important to make this a normal discussion that you have with your loved ones. For example, after a long day, I will come home and I'll chat to my girlfriend and tell her, look, I felt like such an imposter this morning. Maybe I didn't do the job as well as I hoped. I'm really worried my consultant doesn't think that I'm, maybe a good doctor. And straight away, she will pick up on that. And if she doesn't pick up on that, I will directly tell her, to be honest with you, it would be nice to have a bit of a reassurance that I'm not this imposter that I think I am. And it's so nice to have this as part of a normal discussion, because she will say to me exactly what I sometimes say to myself, which is, Kenji, hold on, you made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you're an incompetent doctor. Maybe you didn't do as well as you normally would, but listen, you have to remember that you're a very hard worker. It took you a long time to get to where you are, and you're not an imposter. Go back tomorrow and show them who you really are. Realize how amazing you are and how hard you worked. And sometimes it's okay to rely on your partner or your friend or someone who you love to give you that bit of reassurance. And if you make it part of a normal discussion, 9 times out of 10, when I tell my girlfriend or my mum that I feel this way, they'll also say, you know what, Kenji, I'm so glad that you said that. I've been meaning to talk to you about the feeling of imposter syndrome that I had today. And then I will also be that helping hand and that helping reminder to my loved one that they too are not an imposter and that it's okay to feel this way, and reminding them of all the amazing qualities they have. That is really, really helpful. Sometimes you do need that added kind of, kick in the back and that added bit of positive reassurance to remind yourself of who you are. And the final way that I deal with my imposter syndrome is to see it as your friend and not your enemy. It's not about seeing imposter syndrome as something you can completely get rid of, because I assure you, as a doctor, even today, I still have imposter syndrome on a day-to-day basis, and I do expect myself to have imposter syndrome probably for the rest of my life. Hopefully I will be able to control it, but I don't think it's one of those things that just completely disappears. I think that even your consultant or someone who's very experienced in the field probably feels a bit of imposter syndrome every now and again, because he or she will also be, surrounded by people who are at their level, who are also competing against them as well. So I think the point here is not to learn how to get rid of imposter syndrome, but how to see it from a different and a positive perspective. It's actually a reminder of how hard I've been working and how much I challenge myself. In order to move forward in life, in order to grow, in order to actually chase your goals, then the prerequisites to all of this is a feeling of uncomfortability. So what I advise advise you is to do your best to try get comfortable with being uncomfortable and remind yourself that the fact that you feel this imposter syndrome is evidence that you are growing and that you are pushing yourself on a day-to-day basis. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, imposter syndrome is kind of a feeling that I've made so positive now that when I feel it inside of me, I kind of give myself a very big smile and say, Kenji, you're doing a really good job. The fact that you feel this imposter syndrome right now is proof that you're still challenging yourself every single day. And once you get over this feeling of imposter syndrome using these principles that I told you guys about, when you get on the other side of that hard task that you want to do, you will grow and you will be a completely different person and you will move forward in your life, and therefore you will be more confident in doing that same task next time. So the next time that you feel imposter syndrome, maybe when you're in a medical school interview or you're doing something new in school, remind yourself that this is a good feeling. I'm happy that I have this feeling. It's evidence that I'm pushing myself every single day. And again, guys, to be completely honest with you, if I didn't feel a little bit of imposter syndrome on a daily basis, I would kind of get bored. The reason that I love being a doctor, the reason that I love medicine is every single day I will be in a new challenging environment. I'll have to perform a new task that I've never done before, and that will undoubtedly give me a natural bit of imposter syndrome in my stomach. And it's that feeling in medicine gives me that excitement to keep going every single day and grow as a person in my life. So try your best to apply all of these principles I've given you to see imposter syndrome from a different perspective. Don't see it as an enemy. Don't see it as something you want to completely get rid of for the rest of your life. See it as something that will push you forward every single day, something that's your friend. And I promise you, dealing with imposter syndrome will become much easier on a day-to-day basis. And you may get to the point where you don't even feel it anymore, or at least you feel it and recognize it, and you actually use it to push yourself forward. You use it as a force to actually develop as a person and move forward in your life. And those are all the principles that I highly recommend you guys try out. Before you go, here are a bunch of videos on my channel that I think you might like. If you enjoyed the video, please take 2 seconds out of your day to drop a like, comment down below. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on to never miss another upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.